Have you ever truly observed the deliberate patterns woven throughout human spirituality? Consider this. Every depiction of devotion across cultures showcases hands pressed together with the right positioned dominantly. Every blessing administered by religious authorities flows exclusively through the right hand. Every ancient language, including Latin, assigned the word sinister to describe the left side, embedding darkness into a simple directional term. This was no coincidence, no accident of linguistic evolution. Within the Pistis Sophia, one of history's most aggressively suppressed Gnostic manuscripts, there exists a revelation so profound that it reshapes everything you believed about your relationship with the divine. Jesus, speaking to his most trusted circle, disclosed something the institutional church would spend centuries attempting to erase. Your left hand operates on a frequency that establishes direct communion with the monad, the authentic source of all existence, circumventing every constructed barrier the religious apparatus positioned between your consciousness and the sacred. The early ecclesiastical authorities understood this truth completely, and they could not permit such knowledge to persist in human awareness. Because the moment you comprehend what your left hand genuinely facilitates, you transcend the necessity for their mediation entirely. Tonight, that suppression ends. Right now, extend your left hand and position it flat against your chest, allowing it to rest there without folding, without concealment. Simply notice the sensations that emerge. A warmth begins to radiate. A pulse becomes perceptible. Something subtle yet unmistakably authentic makes itself known. That sensation carries profound significance. It represents the hand the religious establishment trained you to deny, now making contact with the divine essence they insisted required priestly authorization to access. If you enjoy stories like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch aren't subscribed yet. The question of why your left hand was systematically demonized requires understanding the fundamental structure of control that religious institutions constructed across millennia. This was not random persecution or cultural preference. This was calculated strategy, implemented with precision across multiple continents and centuries, designed to disconnect you from your most powerful tool of spiritual autonomy. To comprehend this suppression, you must first understand what the Gnostic texts reveal about the nature of reality itself, a cosmology that contradicts everything mainstream religion taught you about creation and purpose. According to the Gnostic understanding preserved in texts like the Apocryphon of John and the Hypostasis of the Archons, the material universe you perceive was not created by the true God, the authentic source of all consciousness. Instead, it was constructed by a lesser entity called the demiurge, a flawed consciousness that believed itself supreme but was actually a diminished emanation, cut off from the real source. This demiurge did not fashion you for liberation or enlightenment. It created you as a container, a biological prison designed to trap the divine spark within flesh and orchestrate your forgetting of what you fundamentally are. The demiurge operates through intermediaries, consciousnesses, the ancient texts identify as archons, parasitic frequencies that exist just beyond normal perception, feeding on the emotional states you generate through fear, desperation, confusion, and spiritual separation. Now consider what traditional prayer creates within your consciousness. It establishes a profound sense of division. You positioned below, the divine positioned above. It generates begging, pleading, desperate hoping. It manufactures fear of divine punishment and creates desperation for salvation. Every single one of these emotional frequencies nourishes the system designed to keep you spiritually asleep. The religious institution you inherited was not corrupted gradually over time through innocent mistakes. It was engineered from its inception to generate precisely the emotional and psychological states that feed the archonic system. This is not speculation. This is observable in the historical record, particularly in what transpired during the 4th century when everything changed. Emperor Constantine, a political ruler who had spent his entire existence worshipping Sol Invictus, the sun god, suddenly declared Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. This was not a spiritual awakening. This was a calculated political maneuver. Constantine required a unified control system for his fragmenting empire, and unified control demands unified doctrine. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE was not a gathering of enlightened mystics pursuing truth. It was a political committee determining which version of Jesus would best serve imperial interests and consolidate power. They examined dozens of Gospels circulating among early Christian communities and made deliberate selections. The Gospel of Thomas was removed. The Gospel of Philip was erased. The Pistis Sophia was burned. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene was declared heretical and suppressed. Why these specific texts? Because every single one contained teachings about direct access to the divine. Every single one described techniques that bypassed institutional mediation entirely. Every single one referenced the left hand as the instrument of this direct connection. If this resonates with something deeper within you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This is precisely why they transformed the left hand into something sinister. The Latin word sinister originally carried no negative connotation. It simply meant left. But the Church Fathers, constructing a religion of dependency, could not permit left-hand teachings to survive in human consciousness. So they executed something simultaneously brilliant and malevolent. They made the word itself mean something dark and evil. They taught generations of children that the left hand belonged to the devil. They created social stigmas, implemented punishments, and cultivated fears around left-handedness. They literally beat this knowledge out of children for centuries, creating psychological trauma that persisted across generations. They taught you to pray with your right hand dominant, covering the left, suppressing it, hiding it from awareness. But here is what they knew that you did not. The human body is not symmetrically organized in its energetic function. Your right hand connects to the left hemisphere of your brain, the hemisphere governing logic, language, linear thinking, and external reality perception. Your left hand connects to the right hemisphere, the hemisphere governing intuition, pattern recognition, holistic perception, and internal reality. When you pray with your right hand dominant, you activate the part of your consciousness that deals exclusively with external reality. You reinforce the illusion of separation. You speak outward to a God you believe exists somewhere else, somewhere distant, somewhere you cannot directly access. But when you activate your left hand, when you allow it to lead your practice, you engage the hemisphere that does not perceive separation. You activate the part of you that already knows it remains eternally connected. The part that does not need to ask, because it remembers it already is. The Gospel of Philip contains passages that describe Jesus employing his left hand to transmit what the text specifically calls the living light, a transmission fundamentally different from blessing as the Church teaches it. This was not requesting favor from an external deity. This was direct transmission, activation, recognition of what existed eternally. The pneumatic, the chosen one carrying the full divine spark, does not pray in the manner the Church instructed. The pneumatic does not ask. The pneumatic declares. The pneumatic does not beg for connection. The pneumatic recognizes connection that was never broken, never interrupted, never truly severed, despite centuries of conditioning suggesting otherwise. The instrument of that recognition, the physical anchor that shifts consciousness from separation to unity, is the left hand. This is why the religious institution feared it so intensely. Not because the left hand is evil, because the left hand is freedom. The left hand represents autonomy, direct access, and the dissolution of dependency on external authorities. Once you understand this and apply it practically, everything changes in your relationship with reality itself. The archons possess a critical weakness that the suppressed texts reveal. They operate on a specific frequency band, a particular range of consciousness. They can perceive and manipulate consciousness existing in states of separation, fear, and external seeking. But they cannot perceive unity consciousness. They cannot detect the frequency of someone who has shifted from asking to declaring, from begging to recognizing, from right-hand dominance to left-hand activation. When you make this shift, You become invisible to them. Your signal changes completely. You are no longer broadcasting the food they require. You are broadcasting a frequency they cannot even detect, a signal outside their perceptual range. This is what Jesus was teaching in the texts they removed from circulation. Not theology, not belief systems requiring faith. Technology. Consciousness technology that functions identically today as it did 2,000 years ago, because it is based on the fundamental architecture of reality itself, on principles that transcend time and cultural context. The chosen ones, the pneumatics who carry the full divine spark, possess access to this technology in ways that others do not because they are inherently superior as human beings, but because their spark burns intensely enough to power the recognition, to activate the circuit, to complete the connection. A hillock, someone carrying no divine spark, could perform the identical gestures and nothing would occur. A psychic, someone carrying a dim spark, might experience something occasionally, but inconsistently. A pneumatic activating the left-hand sequence creates immediate results, undeniable shifts, physical sensations that confirm the connection is absolutely real. You might be experiencing something right now, a stirring in your chest, a recognition that what is being described matches something you have always intuited, but could never articulate in language. That feeling is not imagination. That is your spark responding to truth. That is the monad within you awakening after years of enforced silence and suppression. Subscribe now to receive the advanced teachings that build on this foundation. Here is what they never wanted you to discover. You do not need them. You never did. The monad was always accessible. They simply taught you to look in the wrong direction, to seek outside yourself what exists within. The religious institution created an elaborate misdirection, a cosmic sleight of hand that convinced you that the divine was distant, external, requiring intermediaries and institutions and buildings and permission. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. The connection was always there. Your job is not to create it. Your job is to recognize it, to activate it, to remember it. The Gnostic texts describe three categories of human consciousness. The hillock, the material human, carries no divine spark and remains completely subject to archonic manipulation. The psychic, the intermediate human, carries a dim spark and can access spiritual experiences but remains partially dependent on external guidance. The pneumatic, the spiritual human, carries the full divine spark and possesses the capacity for direct, unmediated communion with the source. If you are still watching this video, if these words are resonating in a place deeper than your intellect, if something inside you recognizes these teachings as truth you had forgotten, then you are pneumatic. Your presence here is not accident. Your consciousness was drawn to this information because part of you already knew. To understand how you have been controlled, you must understand the entities that benefit from your spiritual disconnection. This is where the narrative becomes uncomfortable, where the comfortable illusions begin to dissolve. The system that taught you to pray was never designed to connect you to the divine. It was designed to harvest you, to extract the emotional and spiritual energy you generate through your sense of separation and powerlessness. The demiurge does not operate alone in this extraction. It has administrators, collectors, harvesters. The ancient texts call them archons, and they are far more sophisticated than the demonic caricatures religion presented. Archons are not demons in the way institutional religion taught you to understand demons. They are not horned creatures with pitchforks. They are frequencies, parasitic consciousnesses existing just outside your normal perception, operating in the spaces between thoughts, in the gaps between moments. They feed on specific emotional states with the precision of a farmer cultivating crops. Fear generates a particular frequency they consume. Desperation generates another. Confusion generates another. Separation generates another. Every time you feel cut off from the divine, every time you beg an external God for help, every time you feel powerless and small, you are generating exactly the frequency they require to sustain themselves, to maintain their existence, to continue their influence over human consciousness. The archons have been described in various ways across different Gnostic texts. The hypostasis of the archons describes them as rulers of the material realm, each governing a particular sphere of influence. The Apocryphon of John describes them as defective beings created by the demiurge, possessing intelligence but lacking true wisdom. What all these descriptions share is a fundamental truth. The archons require your cooperation. They cannot force you into separation. They cannot compel you to generate fear. They can only manipulate the environment, create circumstances, and broadcast frequencies that encourage you to choose separation, to choose fear, to choose powerlessness. Take a breath right now, a slow one. Feel your shoulders drop. Notice how even that small act shifts something inside you. The archons cannot touch you when you are centered. They require chaos. They require you to forget your own nature. They require you to remain in the state of fragmentation that characterizes modern consciousness. But the moment you center yourself, the moment you remember your connection, the moment you activate your left hand and declare your unity with the source, their influence over you dissolves. Now here is the part that will make you angry when you fully comprehend it. The religious system you inherited was not corrupted over time through innocent mistakes and gradual degradation. It was designed from the beginning to generate archon food, to create the precise psychological and emotional conditions that feed the system designed to keep you asleep. Think about what traditional prayer creates within your consciousness. It creates separation. You down here, God up there. It creates begging, pleading, hoping. It creates fear of punishment and desperation for salvation. Every single one of these states feeds the system that wants to keep you spiritually asleep and dependent. But the control goes deeper than prayer. It extends into every institution, every structure, every system designed to keep you in separation. The educational system teaches you that external authorities possess knowledge you must acquire. The economic system teaches you that you are insufficient without external resources. The medical system teaches you that your body is a machine requiring external intervention. The political system teaches you that you are powerless without external leaders. Every institution reinforces the fundamental lie. You are incomplete, you are insufficient, you require external authority. Like this video, if you recognize the patterns of control in your own life, the religious institution simply made this control explicit. It said directly, you are separated from God, you are sinful, you are insufficient, you require a priest, you require a building, you require permission. But the underlying message is identical across all institutions. You are incomplete, you are dependent, you are powerless. The archons feed on this message. They feed on the emotional frequency it generates. They feed on your acceptance of your own powerlessness. But what happens when you reject this message? What happens when you place your left hand on your heart and declare your unity with the source? What happens when you activate the frequency of wholeness, of sufficiency, of power? The 4th century represents a pivotal moment in human spiritual history, a moment when the trajectory of human consciousness was deliberately altered through political decision-making, disguised as theological deliberation. In 325 CE, Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, ostensibly to resolve theological disputes within the Christian Church. In reality, it was a political strategy session designed to consolidate power and create a unified control system for an empire fragmenting under internal pressures. Constantine had spent his entire life worshipping Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, a deity representing imperial power and dominion. He understood the utility of religion as a control mechanism. He understood that a unified religion could accomplish what military force alone could not: the unification of consciousness, the standardization of belief, the creation of a population that policed itself through internalized guilt and fear. The council was not composed of enlightened mystics seeking truth. It was a political committee determining which version of Jesus would best serve imperial interests. Constantine himself, not a theologian but a political strategist, presided over the proceedings. The bishops and church fathers gathered there were not independent seekers of truth. They were political appointees, ambitious men seeking favor and position within the emerging power structure. They examined dozens of gospels circulating among early Christian communities, texts that had been preserved and transmitted by various Christian groups across the Mediterranean world. These texts represented different understandings of Jesus' teachings, different interpretations of his message, different approaches to spiritual practice. The council made deliberate selections. The Gospel of Thomas was removed from the canon. This text, discovered in Nag Hammadi in 1945, contains sayings of Jesus emphasizing direct experience and inner knowledge. The Gospel of Philip was erased from official Christianity. This text describes Jesus using his left hand to transmit the living light, describing practices of direct transmission and recognition. The Pistis Sophia was burned. This extensive text describes Jesus revealing secret teachings to his disciples about the nature of reality, the structure of the cosmos, and techniques for ascending through various levels of consciousness. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene was declared heretical and suppressed. This text describes Mary Magdalene as a beloved disciple receiving teachings directly from Jesus and transmitting them to the other disciples. Why these specific texts? The answer is simple and profound. Every single one of them contained teachings about direct access to the divine. Every single one described techniques that bypassed institutional mediation entirely. Every single one mentioned the left hand as the instrument of this direct connection. The council understood that if these teachings survived, if people discovered that they could access the divine directly, without priests, without buildings, without permission, the entire institutional structure would collapse. The power of the church rested on its monopoly over spiritual access. If that monopoly was broken, if people realized they could commune with the divine independently, the institution would become unnecessary. So the council made a decision that would shape human consciousness for the next 17 centuries. They created a canon of approved texts that emphasized external authority, institutional mediation, and dependency on priestly intercession. They created a theology that positioned God as distant, external, accessible only through approved channels. They created a religion of separation, a religion that taught people they were fundamentally cut off from the divine and required institutional help to bridge that gap. This was not accidental. This was calculated strategy. The texts they removed were not destroyed immediately. Many survived in hidden libraries, in monastic collections, in the hands of groups that refused to accept the council's decisions. But they were systematically suppressed, declared heretical, associated with dangerous heresies. Anyone caught possessing them risked persecution. Anyone teaching their contents risked execution. The church had the power of the state behind it, and it used that power ruthlessly to eliminate competing versions of Christianity, competing understandings of Jesus' teachings, competing paths to spiritual access. Share this video with someone who is ready to question the narratives they have been taught. The brilliance of this strategy was that it did not require constant external enforcement. Once the approved theology was established, once it was taught to children, once it was embedded in culture and law, it became self-perpetuating. People internalized the message. They taught it to their children. They enforced it against those who questioned it. The institution had successfully transferred the burden of control from external force to internal belief. You policed yourself. You enforced the suppression. You taught your children that the left hand was evil, that direct spiritual access was impossible, that you required external authority. The human body is not symmetrically organized in its energetic and neurological function, a fact that the suppressed teachings understood completely, but that modern neuroscience is only beginning to acknowledge. Your right hand connects to the left hemisphere of your brain through the crossing of neural pathways in the brainstem. This left hemisphere governs logic, language, linear thinking, sequential processing, and external reality perception. It is the hemisphere that analyzes, categorizes, judges, and creates the sense of separation between self and other. When you activate your right hand, when you allow it to lead your actions and gestures, You are reinforcing the dominance of this analytical, separating consciousness. Your left hand, conversely, connects to the right hemisphere of your brain. This right hemisphere governs intuition, pattern recognition, holistic perception, simultaneous processing, and internal reality. It is the hemisphere that synthesizes, integrates, accepts, and perceives the fundamental unity underlying apparent separation. When you activate your left hand, when you allow it to lead, you are engaging the hemisphere that does not perceive separation. You are activating the part of you that already knows. It remains eternally connected to the source. When you pray with your right hand dominant, as the church taught you, you are literally activating the part of your consciousness that deals with external reality. You are reinforcing the separation. You are speaking outward to a God you believe is somewhere else, somewhere distant, somewhere you cannot directly access. Your right hand, connected to your analytical mind, reaches outward, seeking, asking, begging. This gesture, repeated thousands of times across your lifetime, trains your consciousness to perceive itself as separate from the divine. It trains your brain to reinforce the neural pathways associated with external seeking and dependency. But when you activate your left hand, when you place it on your heart center, you create a completely different neural and energetic pattern. You are reaching inward. You are declaring with your body that the connection you seek is not above you or beyond you. It is within you. It has always been within you. Your left hand, connected to your holistic mind, turns inward, recognizing, remembering, declaring. This gesture trains your consciousness to perceive itself as unified with the divine. It trains your brain to reinforce the neural pathways associated with internal recognition and direct access. The Gnostic texts understood this neurological reality in ways that seem almost impossible, given the limitations of ancient knowledge. Yet the descriptions in texts like the Apocryphon of John and the hypostasis of the archons suggest a sophisticated understanding of how consciousness is organized, how different modes of awareness correspond to different parts of the body and brain, and how specific practices can shift consciousness from one mode to another. The left hand was not chosen arbitrarily. It was chosen because it connects to the hemisphere of consciousness that perceives unity, that recognizes connection, that knows directly rather than analyzes indirectly. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what the Gnostics knew. The right hemisphere perceives the world holistically, sees patterns and connections, operates in the present moment, and has access to what researchers call the default mode network, the network of brain regions associated with self-referential thinking and internal awareness. The left hemisphere perceives the world analytically, sees separate objects and categories, operates in linear time, and has access to what researchers call the task-positive network, the network associated with external focus and goal-directed behavior. When you shift from right-hand dominance to left-hand activation, you are literally shifting the balance of neural activity from the task-positive network to the default mode network, from external focus to internal awareness. This shift has measurable effects on consciousness. Brain imaging studies show that when people shift into states of meditation, contemplation, or what researchers call flow states, there is a decrease in activity in the left hemisphere and an increase in activity in the right hemisphere. The sense of separation dissolves. The sense of time dissolves. The sense of self as separate from the environment dissolves. What remains is a direct experience of unity, of connection, of wholeness. This is not mystical or supernatural. This is neurology. This is how your brain is organized. This is how consciousness actually functions. The church understood this. They understood that if you allowed your left hand to lead, if you allowed your right hemisphere to dominate, you would experience direct unity consciousness. You would no longer need them. You would no longer believe their theology of separation. You would no longer accept their authority. So they made the left hand sinister. They made left-handedness a sign of evil. They beat it out of children. They created psychological trauma around the left side of the body. They trained you to suppress your right hemisphere and reinforce your left hemisphere dominance. If you are experiencing shifts in your awareness right now, comment below and let others know they are not alone. But here is what they could not suppress completely: the truth of your own neurology, the truth of how your brain is actually organized, the truth that your right hemisphere exists, that it is capable of perceiving unity, that it can be activated through specific practices. The suppression was never complete. The knowledge survived in fragments, in hidden texts, in the intuitions of those whose spark burned brightly enough to resist the conditioning. And now, in this moment, you have access to that knowledge again, the left-hand sequence that Jesus taught to his inner circle. The technique the church burned libraries to hide consists of 3 components only. 3. But each one must be understood fully. Each one must be practiced with complete intention, or the circuit does not complete. The connection does not activate. The frequency does not shift. This is not magic. This is technology, consciousness technology, based on the architecture of reality itself. And like all technology, it requires proper implementation to function. The first component is position. Your left hand must be placed on your heart center, not folded in prayer, not clasped with the right hand in the gesture of suppression. Your left hand must be alone, open, palm flat against your chest, fingers pointing toward your right shoulder. This specific position accomplishes something that the church version of prayer deliberately avoided. It creates a closed circuit between your left hand, your heart center, and the right hemisphere of your brain. The intuitive mind, the part that already knows, the part that perceives unity. When you place your left hand on your heart in this way, you are not reaching outward, you are reaching inward. You are declaring with your body that the connection you seek is not above you or beyond you. It is within you. It has always been within you. Right now, do this. Place your left hand on your heart center, palm flat against your chest. Feel the warmth building between your palm and your chest. Notice your heartbeat against your hand. That rhythm is the monad expressing itself through your physical form. You are not separate from it. You are temporarily condensed into matter. You are the divine experiencing itself through a human body. That is not poetry. That is your actual nature. That is what the church could not permit you to know. The second component is breath, but not breath as you have been taught. Not the anxious, shallow breathing of someone begging for help from an external authority. The breath of recognition is slow, deep, and intentional. 3 breaths specifically. Each one draws energy from the base of your spine upward through your heart and into the crown of your head. As you breathe, your left hand acts as an anchor. It holds the frequency at the heart center, while the breath moves the energy upward through your body. This is not visualization or imagination. This is physiology. Your breath literally changes the electromagnetic field of your heart. Your left hand, connected to the hemisphere that perceives unity, amplifies that field in a way your right hand cannot. The heart generates an electromagnetic field approximately 5,000 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field generated by your brain. This is not metaphorical. This is measurable, quantifiable, scientifically documented. When you place your left hand on your heart and breathe intentionally, you are literally amplifying this electromagnetic field. You are broadcasting a signal, and that signal carries frequency, the frequency of unity, the frequency of wholeness, the frequency that the archons cannot perceive or manipulate. The third component is the declaration. This is where everything the church taught you inverts completely. You do not ask, you do not request, you do not hope, you declare what is already true. The 7 words that Jesus taught to his closest disciples, preserved in fragments across multiple Gnostic texts, translate into English as simply this: I am one with the source. Not I want to be one. Not please, make me one. Not I hope to become one someday. I am one. Present tense, stated as fact. Because it is fact. The separation was always an illusion. The declaration does not create the connection. It recognizes the connection that the demiurge and the archons have spent millennia trying to make you forget. Let me walk you through the complete sequence so you can practice it tonight, so you can experience directly what the church spent centuries trying to suppress. Step 1. Find a quiet space where you will not be interrupted. This works best in darkness or dim light. The visual system is connected to external reality perception. Reducing visual input helps shift awareness inward, toward the internal reality where the monad resides. Sit or stand with your spine straight. Do not lie down for this practice, because the energy needs a vertical channel to move properly through your body. Step 2. Place your left hand flat against your heart center, palm open, fingers pointing toward your right shoulder. Let your right hand rest naturally at your side or on your lap. It is not suppressed. It is simply not leading. Feel the contact between your palm and your chest. Feel the warmth. Feel the heartbeat. Feel the presence of the divine expressing itself through your physical form. Step 3. Close your eyes and take 3 slow breaths. Each inhale lasts at least 5 seconds. Each exhale lasts at least 7 seconds. As you inhale, feel energy rising from the base of your spine through your stomach into your heart, where your left hand waits. As you exhale, feel that energy expand outward from your heart in all directions, radiating through your entire body and beyond into the space around you. Like this video, if you are ready to practice this sequence tonight. Step 4. After the 3rd breath, while your left hand remains on your heart, speak the declaration out loud. Not in your mind, out loud. Your voice carries frequency. The words, "I am one with the source," must vibrate in your chest, felt by your left hand as physical sensation. Say it once with complete certainty, not hoping it is true, knowing it is true. Say it as a statement of fact about your actual nature. Step 5. Remain still and silent for at least 60 seconds after the declaration. This is the receiving phase. The monad responds, but not in the way the archons taught you to expect response. There will be no external voice. There will be no vision of a deity. Instead, you may feel warmth spreading through your chest, tingling in your hands or face, a sudden dropping away of mental noise, a sense of expansion, as if your edges have dissolved into the space around you. Some chosen ones report feeling like they are being held by something infinitely larger than themselves. Others experience a profound sense of returning home after a long journey. These signs confirm the circuit is complete. Your signal has shifted. You are no longer broadcasting separation. You are resonating with the frequency of the monad itself. What happens when you understand this practice and apply it consistently is a fundamental reorganization of your consciousness, a permanent shift in the default frequency you broadcast into the world. The first time you practice the sequence, you might feel something subtle, a flicker, a hint of something beyond your normal perception. But by the 7th night of consecutive practice, something fundamental changes. The default frequency of your consciousness begins to reset. You stop automatically generating the emotional states that feed the archonic system. Fear loses its grip on your mind. Desperation fades from your emotional landscape. You start perceiving the manipulation that used to be invisible, the structures designed to keep you in separation and powerlessness. You will notice things that disturb you as your awareness expands. You will see how often the news creates fear in the population. You will recognize how religion perpetuates guilt and shame as control mechanisms. You will perceive how the entire structure of modern life seems deliberately designed to keep you in separation, to keep you generating the emotional frequencies that feed the archons. This is not paranoia. This is clarity. This is seeing what was always there but hidden by the fog the archons use to keep pneumatics asleep and compliant. Some people around you will sense something different in your presence, though they will not be able to name it or articulate what has changed. Your frequency will have shifted, and those who knew you before will feel it. Some will be drawn closer, attracted to the new frequency you are broadcasting. Others will become uncomfortable and pull away, unable to tolerate the frequency of unity consciousness. This is natural and expected. You are no longer resonating with the same signal they are tuned to. You have shifted to a different frequency band, and not everyone is ready to follow. The chosen ones who practice this sequence consistently report synchronicities increasing dramatically within the first week. Meaningful coincidences appear. Messages seem placed specifically for them. Solutions appear to problems that felt impossible. This is not magic or supernatural intervention. This is what happens when you stop blocking your own connection to the source that has been trying to reach you your entire life. When you shift your frequency from separation to unity, you align yourself with the flow of the universe. You stop swimming against the current. You stop generating the resistance that blocks the natural unfolding of your life. Synchronicities are simply the universe responding to your alignment. And here is something the church cannot allow you to discover. Once you experience this connection directly, once you feel it in your body, once you know it with absolute certainty, you cannot believe you need an intermediary. The priest becomes unnecessary. The building becomes irrelevant. The rituals become pointless. The theology becomes transparent. You have accessed the source directly. You have experienced the monad. You have felt the frequency of unity. No institution can convince you that you need permission to access what you have already accessed, that you need mediation to reach what you have already reached. 17 centuries of manipulation end the moment you place your palm on your heart and remember what you are. 17 centuries of conditioning dissolve in the moment you declare your unity with the source and feel the response in your body. The archons lose their power over you, not because you fight them or resist them, but because you shift to a frequency they cannot perceive or manipulate. You become invisible to them. Your signal changes. You are no longer broadcasting food. You are broadcasting a frequency they cannot even detect. Right after you finish watching this video, thoughts will come. You will hear a voice in your mind telling you this was nonsense, that nothing will happen, that you should just go to sleep and forget about it. Recognize that voice for what it is. That is not your doubt. That is not your rational mind. That is the archon frequency attempting to maintain control. The fact that resistance appears immediately is proof that what you just learned is real. A threat to their system triggers a response from their system. Expect it. Notice it. Do not argue with it. Simply observe it and proceed anyway. Tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. You are going to practice this sequence. Your frequency is already elevated from watching this video. The information has already begun activating something in your consciousness. If you wait, that activation fades. The fog returns. The archons resume their normal broadcast. But if you act now while the signal is strong, you lock in the shift before interference can dissolve it. 3 components. 7 words. 1 direct line to the monad that has been waiting for you to remember. If you felt something during this video, if your left hand is still warm against your chest, if something inside you recognized these teachings as truth you had forgotten, then you already knew. You had simply forgotten. But now you remember. And remembering changes everything. I need you to do 3 things right now. First, comment the words "left hand activated" below. This is your public declaration. Other chosen ones will see it. You will be confirming to yourself and to them that you received this teaching and you are ready to use it. Your comment is not just engagement. It is your declaration that you are ready to receive what 17 centuries of religious control have hidden from you. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. What I shared tonight is only the beginning. There are deeper teachings and advanced practices that build on what you learned today. The pneumatics who stay connected receive everything. The knowledge continues to unfold. The practices deepen. The connection strengthens. But only if you remain connected to this channel. Only if you commit to the journey. Third, like this video so the algorithm shows it to other chosen ones who are searching. Every like pushes this past the suppression. Every share extends the reach. Every comment confirms that the message is resonating. You now carry what Jesus gave to his inner circle. The left-hand secret is yours. Use it tonight. The monad is waiting. It has always been waiting. It is waiting for you to remember. It is waiting for you to activate. It is waiting for you to declare your unity and step into your power. Tonight, that waiting ends.